Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I certainly support the motion that's brought forward today, and I am pleased to support the amendment. We need to look at how we can support people and support those that are in the greatest need. So it is, as Willie Rennie talked about, targeted support, and how do we deliver on targeted support. The Tories, they plan to relax controls on city bosses' pay, so we can see who they want to target, and it is more to the rich while the poor suffer, and that cannot be acceptable. We need to recognise that for older people, people with disabilities, they will use a lot more energy. So you can imagine the difficulties that they're facing right now, and that's one group of people. But the fact is that wages have stagnated over a number of years. The Tories try and say that we need to hold wages down because of inflation, but we know that it is energy costs that are spiralling out of control that's leading to the high inflation we have. And I fear greater inflation going forward, so the pressures will be even greater. Now, there are things that the Scottish Government can do. If you look at, for example, the public sector workers and the wage claims that are coming forward at the present time. So the Government have offered 5% to NHS workers. But for some NHS workers on the lowest pay, that will be perhaps £1,000 a year. For NHS workers on much higher pay, that is £5,000 a year. So the unions are rightly saying that's not fair. In terms of local government, the offer on the table now seems to be 2%. So for the Chief Executive of Fife Council earning £200,000 a year, 2% is quite an offer. But it's not the same for low-paid workers on £15,000 to £20,000 a year. So the Scottish Government, I think, will have to look again in terms of wages and ensuring that local authorities have the funding to be able to pay the lowest paid workers so that they can actually tackle this problem. As I say, the Tories are quite happy to try and help the rich but not help the poor. But it's also time for all people in this country. Gordon Brown spoke at the weekend and said all people of conscience and goodwill, faith groups, charities, foundations, local councillors, mayors and concerned business leaders, all in the country's nations and regions, to call on the Chancellor for a fourth budget to prevent what is likely to be the biggest rise in family poverty that we have seen in our lifetime. So I would hope that this Parliament could unite behind such a call, because yes, there's more the Scottish Government can do, yes, there's things that we all need to do to try and help, but the reality is that the Chancellor needs to bring forward a budget that will actually tackle these problems and tackle them head-on. This Parliament could begin by uniting in a call on the Government to restore the £20 universal credit uplift and take steps to help those families right now. As we came towards this crisis, the Tories actually cut money from some of the poorest people in the country and people that were in work. Remember, tax credits were there to help people who were low paid. So we can unite in this Parliament and ask them to restore that. By next winter, it's likely that over 5 million children across the UK will be living in poverty in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, because we have a government that is refusing to act.
No, the member has just concluded.
So I would appeal, let's join together, let's work together. The amendment shows that the government is willing to do that. Let's work together and call on the UK Government to take the steps that it needs to take to address this crisis now.
Thank you, Mr. Rennett.